Hey everyone, it's Sleepy Reader. Another Comic Book Thoughts countdown. My shop will supposedly be getting me this Wednesday's comics, and then they'll be shutting down. So I'll have at least one more of these countdown videos until who knows when. Excuse me. I'm kind of bummed about it. And I'm really bummed that I can't buy any hand sanitizer. But seriously, when all of us grown-ups are complaining about this, think about what the kids are going through. My daughter at age 11, school shut down, all activities shut down, birthday parties canceled, play dates canceled. The only kind of occasional interaction she was getting with other kids was we would go out to a playground and have a kind of one-on-one play date, so it's not a large bunch of kids, and you're outdoors and the germs aren't going trapped in the room and such. And now they've shut down the playgrounds. So my daughter's looking, and other kids are looking at 2 months or more than that, just shut in the house. Perhaps if they're only kids like mine, only seeing their two parents most of the time and not much else for months on end. That's much tougher than what us grown-ups are going. At least I get to go to the grocery store. So anyway, just wanted to say that, venting again, getting it off my chest. Another thing to get off my chest is no, I did not read Batman 91 because I still did not get Batman 89. Yeah, they published a second print, but Diamond didn't ship it to my comic book store. This is what happens. This is readers versus flippers and speculators. This is what happens to readers when they buy single issues. They get caught by that speculator fever, and their reading flow is ruined. Again, not a big problem compared to many other problems. So anyway, all of the comics I read, I enjoyed. Again, there were 11 of them. Kind of a pattern here. Maybe I've gotten very good at eliminating the ones I don't enjoy, except when the Legion of Superhero comes along, which I stubbornly keep getting, but that one didn't come out this week. So at number 11 on my list was Conan number 13, written by Jim Zub. Kind of a funny cover. Somehow it makes me feel like Conan's a bit like one of the Three Stooges or something. I could imagine going yuck, 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 yuck as he runs across the burning altar or something. But this is a pretty good story by Jim Zub. It kind of resembles a certain kind of 90s or I think 90s kind of horror movie where a bunch of people get trapped in a place full of death traps. The one I can remember was The Cube. And wasn't there a sequel to The Cube? What did they call it? It couldn't be The Cube Cubed or something. But anyway, movies like that, it reminds me of that. So it's a little bit interesting, a little bit weird to see that in the Conan world. But it's a pretty good idea. But I kind of hate the artwork. And as Chaos and Comics said, the artwork did get better from the first issue in this, issue number 13, which was the first issue in this new arc. But the artwork just fits wrong, and it just feels like an artist doing, the minimally required job that he's expected to do, perhaps. And the colorist is, again, a little better than the last issue, which was really terrible coloring, but still it's coloring that kind of turns me off too. So it's hard for me to read a Conan when I'm visually unengaged. For me, Conan really depends on the art, which is why I put this at a number 11. I'm kind of curious what will happen, so I probably, if I can, if it's around, I'll probably get the next issue, but we'll see. It might depend on my mood on that day. The other comic that was a little bit of a disappointment for me was Valkyrie, which I put at number 10. Again, all of these I enjoyed. Valkyrie has either a guest artist or a new artist who did a very good job, actually, and the coloring is fine. However, I found the story, I don't know, it's become what I call lumpy. The story doesn't flow. My interest sort of comes and goes as I'm reading it. It doesn't have that rhythm that's really good stories do, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's the fault of Jason Aaron or the new writer Torunn Grunbeck, who I think is a woman from some Scandinavian or Northern European country, because I feel like I saw her on YouTube somewhere. But maybe I have that confused with something else. So I don't know if I can blame her. Oh, yeah, it says guest artist Ramon Rosales. But Ramon Rosales is a good artist. He kind of reminds me of that, what was his name? Dauterman. Kind of reminds me of that Dauterman artist who did a lot of Thor. So I thought he was doing a good job. So anyway, yeah, it just kind of did not read as well as I thought it would. In at number 9, another one that I had, well, this one I particularly had high expectations for, Starship Down, just the title. I love the idea of finding alien spaceships and exploring them, and that looks like what this one is going to be. But it's kind of in the way it's written is kind of in that movie horror kind of mode, with the scientists brought into this secret enclave with militaries from different countries, the Russians and the Americans in this case, and brought in thinking they're coming for one thing, to look at cave paintings, and then finding out, as we know just from there's the cave paintings, as we know just from the title of the book, because there's a spaceship down there. And I think part of it was the art is just okay. There's this obviously evil cardinal from the Vatican. I found it interesting that that this cardinal from the Vatican talked so much to other people about their sins and their lack of faith, or not having the right faith. I don't think of, like, the priests I've known, they don't talk that way to people. I just don't think of on the spot. But obviously he's being set up to be a villain, and to be a stand-in for all sort of religiously rigid people. Whereas I think, for better or worse, cardinals are probably more like politicians. They're although I haven't met any cardinals, so I'm just guessing. They're savvy people who are dealing with large organizations and know how to get along with people and make things work. Would be my guess. Again, I don't know. I've met some priests. In non-religious settings, but not any cardinals. So that 11, 10, 9, down at number 8. Once still continuing its downward trend in my rankings, Lucifer number 18. In fact, as I was reading it, a little thing in the back of my head was saying, is this the time to drop Lucifer? Is it just no longer the comic for you? There are interesting parts, like in the last issue, the main character I like is this woman who's the reincarnation of the hunted god, and that's really cool. And then there's a lot of mythological stuff, which I should like, but I feel so distanced and uninvolved in it. And it's also grim that my feeling of caring about what's happening in Lucifer is just slowly lowering. It's still an interesting comic. I think I'll stick with it. Again, should everything return to normal eventually. But I'm just caring less. So I think when it gets to the end of this arc, let's see, this is issue 18. And I think the last arc issue ended on 13. So this is the 5th issue of this arc. I wonder how long this arc is going to be. But when it gets to the end of this story, I'll definitely be reevaluating, or maybe even the next issue if I lose interest even more. Really great cover, by the way. I didn't check to see who did the cover. Where are the credits in here? Not on the last page. Not on the first page. Not anywhere near the first page. Can't find the credits. Oh, I think they may put them on a separate page now for Vertigo. Yes, I'm sorry. They do this thing, separate page here at the end. That's where you learn the title and the credits. I don't know why. I still, after reading tons and tons of comics where they put the credits at the end, I just don't understand it. Maybe they think that's like a movie? But the cover was by Tiffany Terrell. Terrell? I don't know. She's a good artist. Very cool. And the art inside is fine, and the coloring's really good. I just am not that engaged anymore. And I think part of it is I used to, even though I knew he wasn't all a good guy, I used to kind of relate to this Vertigo. Now, I don't relate to the real Lucifer, if there is such a being, but I did kind of relate to this Lucifer as a rebel and a, guy who just has his own agenda rather than following other leaders. But now he just seems yucky. Okay, in at number 7 was Plunge, written by Joe Hill, the standard bearer of Hill House, the whole series of the whole mini imprint of comics at DC's Black Label. This continued to be kind of like the Starship Down, but with way better art, read like a movie script and was pictured like a movie script. You could see the movie that they might have made by looking at the pictures in the comic. But it's very suspenseful. It feels kind of familiar in the way horror movies do. But I'm very curious still to see what the explanation of the dead people who seem to be sort of alive, or maybe they're animated by some aliens or by some evil spirits or something like that. The cast of characters who are probably going to one by one get killed off are well enough done and delineated. So this was an enjoyable comic. I do have a little prejudice against comics that feel like movies. I want comics to feel like comics. There's a very cool underwater creature. I hope we see more of that. And there was a moment here where I was unclear if this submersible ends up swallowed by this creature. I think it does because they don't show it, which it's a comic book. You should show it. But they do have the characters say, "Did you see that? I'm not sure, but I think a giant sea coochie just ate our ROV." I assume this is their ROV that they're inside. Yeah, I was a bit confused by that. But otherwise, just a really well done horror comic / horror movie proposal. So that got my number 7 spot. Even more fun was Jimmy Olsen by Matt Fraction and the amazing Steve Lieber, who can do a great Peanuts pastiche, which kind of blends over into a Richie Rich pastiche and blends over into a Calvin and Hobbes pastiche. So there's a lot of that in this, plus the other weirdness that we're used to of mixing in different characters and different scenes and moments that are all still apparently adding up to something having to do with Jimmy and someone trying to kill him. Some of my favorite moments involved Lex Luthor. Can I find that? Anyway, I really liked this comic. I think I'm still ranking it lower. I like it, but then I'm also frustrated by it. I want a little more there, a little... It's always on the edge of its cute, smug smarminess getting to me. So it's kind of not a love-hate, but a love uneasiness thing. So this came in at number 6. And then at number 5 is kind of my turning point. Somewhere, all of those others were ones I liked. And all of the next set after the Creeps are ones I loved. And Creeps was somewhere in between there. And a lot of it is just like the last time I talked about the Creeps. It's just growing on me. I'm getting more used to the cheesiness of the stories, and I'm really looking forward each time a new issue comes out to their regular group of artists, seeing them do a story again. One of my favorites is this guy Benito Gallego, whose art looks so much like John Buscema in a way. So I always am really happy when I see that. And this story and the next one after it, so this one was a Western about an undertaker who makes a deal with the devil to become a gunman. And then the next story is about what appears to be a zombie story, but turns out to be something entirely different. And both of those are written by Nicola Cuti, who just died, like, what was it, about a month ago. And he was even though most of us would think he's the creator of E-Man and did a lot of work for Warren Comics, and this is Warrant Comics, a lot of work for Eerie and Creepy and Vampirilla, and he also did other work at Marvel and DC, maybe more DC, and he also, I think, worked in editorial at DC. But anyway, he was in his 70s, and he was actively publishing every month or every issue in the Creeps, and apparently he was also an associate editor here of some sort, maybe a advisory position, I'm not sure. So they have a little farewell to him, and it's, I don't know, I just heard a really good interview with him on Creator Talks. I'll see if I can find the link and put that in here. That really charmed me and made me more interested in Nicola Cuti now that he's dead. But I really appreciated seeing stories by him popping up here, and maybe there still will be more. Here's more examples of the kind of fun art here. I think at first, when I first started picking up the Creeps and I was thinking about Warren Comics, and this is a kind of a tribute to Warren Comics, I was thinking it should be more like the later Warren Comics that I was used to, with more of the Spanish artists and such. This does have European artists in it, but it doesn't have as much of that feel. I mean, at times it does, but some of the stories are so cheesy, like a monster plant that, in fact, can I find that one? One of the mad scientists in the monster plant thing is Jerry Lewis as the wacky professor. Is that what he was called? The nutty professor. And I don't know if the other scientists are perhaps plays on other movie scientists that I just didn't quite recognize. There they are. So I don't know. That was weird seeing. Anyway, so it's definitely a nostalgic thing, and this is an awesome cover. I don't know if it's a reprint or not. But they mentioned that Jeff Easley, who did this, also worked for Warren Comics. Again, amazing. They're on issue 24. They seem to be going strong. They're going to start another comic that's kind of a Vampirilla-like comic. I think it's called Carmilla or something like that. And I'm just amazed they're still going, and they're going strong. They seem to be doing very well. So now the last 4 comics are all ones that could have been my number one. You know, all of them were a great read. So it was hard to rank them, but I put Usagi Yojimbo number 9 at my number 4. And the reason was, it's kind of most of the story was just a long fight, and that was done well. But the end result of the fight was a loss. And everybody, except for Usagi, because he was just helping them out as a passerby, everybody is going to have to go back to their lord and commit suicide for failing. And it just ended on such a grim note that I just enjoyed it a little less. And this issue but still, you know, like I said, it could have been a number one. And this issue gave us a lot of pages, 28 pages of story, and a very creepy epilogue that I really enjoyed too. So this current Usagi Yojimbo goes from strength to strength always. I get very excited to see when it comes out. They have the Usagi Classic, which is hard to, it looks very much like this. So when you glance at it on the shelf, you might buy both. But I decided I wanted to get the other one in trades, hopefully a hardback. I noticed now in previews that the other one, the Usagi Yojimbo Classic, is now listed as a or limited series of 9 issues. So I don't know if that means it wasn't selling well, and so they decided to cut it short. And I hope that doesn't affect future prospects for the recoloring and reprinting in book form of the entire Yojimbo backlog. But we'll see. But anyway, in the meantime, super enjoying this. And the way this, you know, I don't know fully its accuracy about Japanese medieval culture, but it definitely makes you start relating to things that are so unlike the world that we live in now that it's kind of amazing, you know, where certain ideas of honor and such, which are meaningless to us because they're really weird ideas of honor to us, are so important then. At number 3, I put The Red Mother, which I enjoyed. Ooh, what happened? Oh man, someone spilled some liquid on here, and I think I knew who. But anyway, I really enjoy this. It's creepy. It kind of like what you want in a longer horror story, kind of like what you want in a longer mystery story, is it's not just about the plot. It's about all the details of the world and the characters, and this has a lot of that going on. I'm very intrigued about this new job that our character is getting, just as much as I am about the creepy Red Mother stuff going on around her. So yeah, it's a very interesting comic. I really like that our heroine, she's not unattractive, but she's not some cliched attractive woman. She's got an interesting looking face, kind of an individual kind of person who you can believe is a real person you might meet if you lived in New York City or something, where she lives. Anyway, so they're still doing a really good job here. I don't know how long this is supposed to go on for, but I definitely hope there's still, another 10 issues or so at least, because it's feeling very rich, and I would like it to continue to develop slowly and not quickly wrap up or anything. Then at number 2 was a comic I was highly anticipating, and it wasn't quite exactly what it thought it would be. I'm not quite sure yet what it is, but it is X-Ray Robot, written by Michael Allred, colors by his wife Laura Allred, who always does a fantastic job coloring him. And it's this wacky, weird story about, and you expect wacky and weird from Michael Allred, about some scientists using a guy who can, I don't know if only this one guy can do it or he's just the volunteer to do it, connect his brain to this robot that they can teleport through dimensions or space, and then he can see what the robot sees. But things don't work out the way they think. And Allred does lots of good, subtle and not so subtle, surreal kind of moments where we seem to be looking at the future or at alternate histories and such, but just little flashes of them. So I'm not quite sure where it's all going yet, and I don't want to spoil the revelation on the last page, which still leaves a lot of questions open. But the art's really fun. I know some people have trouble with getting used to Michael Allred's art, and I'm with you. I was that way a while back. And somewhere between his work on the FF at Marvel and then Silver Surfer at Marvel, I started liking his work more and more. I mean, I liked bits and pieces of it before, but really started liking it by a few issues into his Silver Surfer run with Dan Slott. I was always looking forward to more art by Michael Allred, and this one satisfies on that level. And Allred is a good writer. I don't think I've seen him write anything lately. The closest we got to that was when he was doing a comic about, who was it about? About Bug, which was written by his brother, not by Michael Allred. So that may not be close to him at all, except it was, another Allred. But this is all Michael Allred scripting. There's an interesting kind of Me Too moment that I wasn't sure as a man how to take. Where this guy who's making moves on this woman, woman, when she gets a witness, uses it as a way to blackmail him to get the job she wants in the company. Was that his just comeuppance, or was that really a bad thing or a bad way to do things? And it was quite an extended scene in the comic, so I'm wondering if the story will play back on that fact in a larger degree, or if it was just an interesting thing that Michael Allred wanted to put in. And it feels retro enough. It's always hard to tell with Michael Allred art that I kind of imagine this is not taking place now, but in some sort of idealized 70s maybe, or 60s. No, probably 70s. Anyway, who knows? I don't really know that for sure. A really fun, really cool comic book, and unique, So I really enjoyed that. Another very unique comic, even though this one is wet too, or was wet. So there was a spill on my desk, and kind of has to do with school closures. So Bang is both derivative and very unique. The first issue seemed to draw straight out of James Bond. This second issue, I'm not sure what it's drawn out of. It has a character who looks a bit like the guy from Die Hard. But he gets superpowers from these vials that he can, inhalers that he can breathe in, and it gives him 3 different superpowers. And he's a character of a series of men's adventure novels, so sort of along the lines of James Bond in that sense, or The Executioner, or The Avenger, or one of those men's adventure books that I remember seeing all over the place when I was a kid in the 70s. So first of all, I thought just the idea of this character and his powers and his situation in life would make a great series of books that I really would want to read, or comics. But it's just a one-issue thing here because we're moving on with the rest of our plot. And now it's becoming clear that we're going to get characters from a variety of different pulp cliches, or pulp familiar or somewhat familiar pulp situations, who are then somehow being drawn into a into a kind of mystery, paraliterary mystery about this writer Philip Verve. And once again, we get 2 pages from novels, and both of them are actually important to read and add quite a bit to your understanding of the book. And I just really like that. My only complaint is the art. As you flip through it, the art looks pretty good, but as you look closer, you see a lot of reusing of the same figures. And I just started suspecting we're seeing kind of figures created with some kind of poser software, perhaps, and then traced on a screen, and then copied and pasted throughout the comic. So I found that a little distracting at times, and I felt like this story was so good it deserved even better art. And in a lot of ways, I think the colorist carried it and made the pages seem more lively than they would have already seemed. These 2 guys are the same guy, and that's the same guy there, the exact same pose and everything. And there's just a lot of that. But it wasn't enough to not make this my number 1 comic, so I shouldn't complain too much. I am really excited for what's coming next in Bang. In fact, I like this so much, if I get the chance, I might buy a second copy since this is now water damaged. That's quite a bummer. Luckily, this isn't water damaged because I really like this and want to take good care of it. And, I'm pretty sad about a Red Mother too. Anyway, so it goes. Most of these comics are going to be worth 50 cents yesterday, so I shouldn't worry about it, really. Thanks for joining me, and I will be back with other stuff. I will hopefully be going to my comic book store for the last time for a little while on Wednesday, and then as I won't run out of comics to read. I've got a ton of them. It'll be good, I suppose, in that sense, to catch up with some others, and I'll make videos about that. And if I have time, which, despite it seeming like one should have more time with all this staying at home, in a sense I don't, because spending more time with my daughter, which is a good thing, but less just free time to get all the kinds of things done in life I want to. But if I do find more time, I have a lot of hauls and things I want to do. Piled up stuff from hauls of the past few months that I still wanted to share with you if I can. So I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.